Hi, this is Edward Troxel. In today's tutorial, we're going to look at something that I saw on the forum the other day. It's where we wanted to swap two events on the timeline. It doesn't change the positioning of anything, it just swaps these two events. And so those are the only two events whose position will be changed. And so the length is not taken into consideration, so you may end up with a gap or an overlap that wasn't there previously. But here's an easy way to go ahead and just swap two events on the timeline. So I've kind of reworked what they did into my own way. And so let's see how we can do that. Here's our script, and everything down to the my Vegas equal Vegas is all of our standard stuff. Then I created me a track event, which I called the first event, and just set that equal to null. Next we have a track event, which I called second event, and we set that equal to null. Now we need to find our two events that are selected. So I'm going to go for each track, my track in myvegas.project.tracks, and then for each event in mytrack.events, if that event is selected. Now I kind of have to do this backwards, and I'll explain why. The first thing I want to do is, if the first event equals null, then I want to set the first event equal to this event. So I've found the first event, but I have to look at these backwards, because if I then say if the first event is not null and the second event equals null, well, as soon as I set this first event, if I put this below this, then it's going to set both of them to be that first event, because at this point here, the first event will not be null, but the second event is null, so it would just set the second event equal to the same event. So we have to do this first. So if the first event is not null and the second event is null, then we want to set the second event to this event, and then I'm going to break out of this loop. And then following this check, we do if the first event equals null, then we set the first event equal to the event. Then coming down to the track loop, if the first event is not equal to null and the second event is not equal to null, then I'm going to break out of the loop. Now once we've broken out of the two loops using the two breaks, we can then go ahead and check to see if we can move these two events and actually do the moving. If the first event is not equal to null and the second event is not equal to null, if they did have two events selected and we found both of them, then we can move them. But we also have to check and the first event.media type equals the second event.media type. So say the first event was a video event and the second event was an audio event. We can't move those because you can't put a video event on an audio track and you can't put an audio event on a video track. So the first thing I'm going to do is set me a timecode variable. The first event, first start, is at first event.start. And then track, our first track, equals the first event.track. Now I'm going to take the first event.start and set it to the second event.start. Then I'm going to take the first event.track and set it to the second event.track. Then I can now change the second event. So I'm going to set the second event.start equals the first start, which we saved up here. And then the second event.track equals the first track. And then we have all of our ending standard stuff below that. So now that you've seen the script, let's see how this works. Here I have a bunch of events on the timeline. So if I say select one of these and select another one of these over here, they're both on the same track, and we run the script, and now you can see those two events have been moved. Now let's take an event here, an event on a different track, and we will tell it to run. And you can see that the first event is now on track 3 and the second event is now on track 1. Now let's do the same thing with audio. We'll just pick two random audio pieces. And you can see our two audio events have been moved. And now Let's select one video and one audio. And you can see in this case, nothing happened because they are different media types. So that's an interesting little way that we can swap events on the timeline. It just literally does a swap, doesn't take into account anything else related to the event other than the event type. And so it will just swap out the two events into the other location. So I hope you find this tutorial useful. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.